Hi everyone, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you just a quick little technique today to make a more of a statement for some of your pieces that you've made. And we're going to be making an O chain necklace. So the O chain is basically just O beads and 15 O seed beads. If you don't have 15 O seed beads, you could also use 11 O seed beads. Either one of those will work. Normally when you have a pendant or a piece that you've made, you usually are kind of at the end and you think, oh, I'm just going to stick this on a silk cording or stick it on a silver chain. But to really make a statement with some of your pieces that you've taken a little bit more time with, a good idea is to use the beads that you've used in the pendant piece to actually make your chain as well. So the O chain is just, like I said, O beads and 15 O's. The one that I've done here as my example, and actually a piece that I'm still working on, and we'll get to a YouTube at some point, is with the hematite colored O beads, as well as a gray 15 O seed bead. For the one that I'm going to do in the example, I'm going to be using the crystal slipperit because I'm going to put it with my crystal O Rivoli here, and I'm going to make that chain so that it slips in. This one, the example, hasn't been finished yet, but I'm going to slide it on just to show you the idea of it. And the nice thing is the O beads are rather small that if you do have something that's already done, usually your bails that you make are big enough that you can actually put them through and you'll be able to put it on and take it off as well. So there's an example of a nice, more substantial chain that you can make using these O's. Again, I'm using the crystal slipperit and I'm going to use 15 O's in the galvanized silver on my pendant that I've made, and you've seen other videos for it. If you haven't, the video is there for this one. I use the silver lined crystal, but I want a little bit more of a pop with this one here. In addition to my O beads and my 15 O's, I'm going to be using some thread. I'm using 0.006 wildfire beading thread, and I'm using that in a white color because I'm using that crystal slipperit. In addition to that, you need whatever sort of clasp you want to do. Whether you want to do a lobster clasp or a barrel clasp. Sometimes I use these with pendants because that way they're nice and skinny that you can get it over your different pendant and your bezels or your bails that you've created. I'm going to be using a wire protector. The wire protector is nice because then the wire is not going to rub on my clasp or whatever I'm making as my clasp. So other than these two things in your clasp and your thread and then a size 10 English beading needle, that's all you need in order to make this nice fun O chain necklace that's going to make your piece that you've already made or that you're planning to make, or even pieces of sea glass, things that you've wrapped, anything that you have sitting around, or if you're building a necklace base off the bottom like I'm doing here and we'll get to later on in my YouTube creations. It just gives, again, a nice little piece to put your beads on and to create some additional style. So we're going to get started with our O chain necklace. So to get started here, all I'm going to do is I have my little pile of my O beads. I'm going to make a little pile of my 15s. And again, it's very, very simple. I am going to start with my clasp. So if you're using wire protectors, you're going to go up the back of the wire protector, and you see that little channel that my needle's in. I'm going to drop that down, basically next to my project. I'm going to go back through the other side of the wire protector. What that does is the thread sits right in that little channel there of the wire protector, and that way you don't have the thread rubbing against the clasp. I'm not going to leave much of a tail at all. I'm going to leave that just so I can tie on to. At this point, I'm going to put through the tail my little toggle loop, and then it's going to sit right on to my wire protector. Those two ends then, the one that I'm starting with and then the one that's the long piece, I'm going to tie those in a knot right at the end of the wire protector. And I'm going to do that 3 times. Additionally, what I'm going to do before that third knot is I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go back through the wire protector again, so that way I have 2 pieces of thread that are in that channel, since this is going to be where I have the most tension. And the wire protectors are tiny, so it's kind of hard to see, but when you get them and use them, it all makes sense. Oops. Pull that down there. And again, another little knot. And then once your wire protector is on and ready to go, and you have your knot, if you want, you can glue that knot and then wait a little bit. I do that at the very, very end, once my whole chain is completed. And there we go. So that's right at the end of my thread, almost acting as my stop bead too, because normally I have a stop bead, but that wire protector is on there. And I'm going to start my O chain right away. So I'm going to put on one of my O beads, a 15 O bead. Then I'm going to run the wire, or the thread and needle, back through the O. What that's going to do is that 15 O bead here is just going to sit right at the end. So from the back it just looks like the O. From the front it has a little bit of that C bead on it. Next one goes on, and then a 15 O. Running the wire or the thread and the needle back through the O. You can see I'm kind of holding it, sandwiching it, because what I want to make sure is there's not a lot of gap like that. To tighten it up, you're going to kind of pull on the O bead and pull, as you see I'm pulling some tension on my thread. That's going to get them to sit right on top of one another. Again, O, 15, and then back down my O bead. At the end of each one, you want to give a nice tight pull to make sure that it's right in there, right next to the last one that you put on. And this is all it is. It's very simple, very easy, just recreating basically the look of a chain with the O beads and the 15s. If you don't have 15s or you hate working with 15s, you could also use 11s. They're just going to stick out a little bit more. I like the 15s to cap the O's because then you actually see the O beads. The nice thing with most of the O beads is that the chain's going to have a little bit of color variation, because a lot of the O beads, when you're looking at them, the way that the finish is done and the way that they're produced in the Czech Republic is one side is going to look somewhat one color and one side is going to look another color because of the finish that's going on them. And because they are small, and if you do use a tiny toggle or a tiny lobster clasp, you can get a lot of different necklaces on. If you wanted to do these in the O beads and like the full Labrador, it would look almost like a silver chain. I think the color's kind of fun, and it's going to dress up a lot my O necklace here. So when I'm looking at that, that's basically what it's going to be. Continuing on my chain with my O beads and my 15s. Again, making sure to pull tension after each one to make sure that it's sitting nice down and tight. If it's not sitting tight, it's not going to be a big deal, but you will see some thread in between. My goal is always to see as little thread as possible. And give a nice tight pull. And I'm going to keep doing this and continuing on with my pattern. A very simple pattern the whole way along my line. You will use a fair amount of O beads for this because that's really all that it is. So you're going to want to get a whole tube of the O beads and plan on a tube for this. Now obviously, depending on what size you make your chain, if you make your O chain to be 16 inches, you're obviously not going to use as many O beads as if you're going to make it 24 inches. You could also make these as bracelets and double them up. The layered look is in style, and you can do that. Oh, wrong order there. But I'm just going to continue making my chain longer, adding my O's and my 15s right down along my line. So I've gotten my chain a little bit further here, just working, and you can see kind of the shape that it takes. It's just that every other, and then it has that pop of color. It has that nice color mix. And just to show you what it looks like on, you can put it on here. You can either make these so that they stay on, that you can take them off, that they can be removable. It's kind of up to you. But that's what it's going to look like when it's done. So it definitely makes a more substantial statement than just adding a piece of silk cording or just adding a simple silver cording or gold or whatever. But the O beads definitely make a statement, especially if you're using them in your design to make your design. Here's kind of a peek at the O chain that I'm using right now for this design here with the cut button and the flowers. It really does give it a nice look, something very simple and easy. If you've been working with the O beads and you have some extras too, you can even throw a bunch together because the colors complement each other so well. You can throw some together and get them to mix and create a nice O chain necklace. So hopefully you have a chance to get some of the O beads. If you haven't picked some up already, you can go to potomacbeads.com, check out our locations page, and go to the store nearest you to pick up some of the new Czech O beads. If you can't get to one of our stores, you don't live near one of them, you can shop at thebeadco.com. We have lots of O's in all different colors in stock, and we're happy to ship them out to you. So thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully it gives you an idea to make some O chains for your different necklaces and your different pendants that you already have made or beautiful ones that you're going to make. So have a great rest of your day and happy beading!